All right, what up, Colts fans? We are here with the first edition of this Fan Question Friday show we're going to have here running on the channel. We're going to do this show every single Friday right before games. I think the Colts have a Thursday night game this year, so we might do one on like a Wednesday before that one. But yeah, we're going to do this every single week. I'm going to be the primary host on every single one. I'm sure Andrew will be the guy who joins me for most of them, but we'll see if we can get Jake and Josh on here. But Andrew, man, how you doing? And congratulations on the promotion here. You're officially not an intern anymore. You don't have to get me coffee anymore through the computer because we didn't actually have an in-person office or anything like that. But
Right.
but congratulations, man. I mean, you definitely earned it.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. It's been a fun ride so far. Definitely enjoy working with you and Jake and Josh, and I'm excited for the season. I really am. We're finally going to talk about football that actually matters and not just preseason games. So it's exciting to talk about, and hey, the Colts have a gauntlet of a schedule to start, so it's definitely going to be interesting.
Yeah, guys, definitely make sure you're following Andrew there on Twitter. He has his handle right there below him. He's going to be doing our post-game shows as well right after the games, along with throughout the week. I mean, he's putting out the most articles of everybody on the site, so he's killing it. But to get to some news things before we even jump into all the questions stuff, make sure you guys are following Horseshoe Huddle on Twitter. I think SI Colts is also our other Twitter. We have two Twitter accounts, so you can get it either way. Here on YouTube, Horseshoe Huddle on YouTube, and then also on Facebook. I know we're going to get a couple people from Facebook that join us tonight too. So make sure you guys are checking out those things there to kind of keep up to date with all Sports Illustrated Colts. Some news things today, though, before we jump into questions, because we've got a ton of great questions on Twitter. And I know you guys are going to fill up that whole chat thing on the side, which we'll be sure to get to a bunch of those as well. But the Colts and Nyheim Hines agreed to an extension, the third of the three dominoes that we're going to have to fall here before the season. We got Darius Leonard extended, Braden Smith extended, and now Nyheim Hines with a 3-year, $18.6 million extension, $12 million guaranteed, and I think it was $10 million at signing bonus. Like it was like the upon signing $10 million guaranteed. So I love the extension. What do you think, Andrew? What do you think of this extension?
I think it's a home run, honestly. While it puts him in the top 10 of highest paid running backs in the league, Nyheim Hines is such a vital part of this Colts offense. Yep. I mean, whether he's shown that he's not just a gadget guy, he's small, but he can run through the tackles. He's probably one of the best pass catching backs in the entire league. And Frank Reich has said it. We want to get the ball in Nyheim Hines' hands more often. And I really think we're going to see that in just a variety of different ways this season. But when you're talking about this running back group, I mean, we've got Nyheim now for 3 years. Jonathan Taylor is going to be on a rookie deal. You brought this up on Twitter earlier today that they've got two studs in that running back group that are getting paid less than $8 to $9 million per year for the next few years. So it's a great move by the Colts, and I was very excited to get it done. What were your thoughts on it?
Well, you guys know I'm a big Nyheim Hines fan. Just love him as a person, love him as a player, great special teamer, great person in the locker room. But yeah, as you said, as pass catching back, I think Pro Football Focus had him rated as their highest pass catching running back in the NFL last year. He was also second in the league among running backs in yards per catch and yards per reception down the field and stuff like that. So great in the pass game. And then he also has career high in rushing and just running the ball in general. He had 4.8 yards carry last year. We all remember in the playoff game against the Bills, he had 6 carries for 75 yards. Just a huge game. So yeah, Nyheim Hines definitely worth it. I think they're paying him right before he really hits his stride and really starts to hit his peak. So I'm big fan of that extension there. And then some other new stuff. Just another quick thing we're going to touch on before we get into some questions. I've been carrying the Hines banner for 2 years now, dude. Yeah, Nyheim Hines, man. I've been saying it for a while. It's just one of my favorite players. I loved him as a draft prospect coming out, and then when it became him being for the Colts, being able to cover him, I got to talk to him 2 years ago and do a film interview with him. Just really great guy. Big fan. Appreciate the shout out here. But another news thing that we want to talk about here just before we get into the questions is the Colts did rule out 3 players for this Sunday. Cornerback Xavier Rhodes, left tackle Eric Fisher, and pass rusher, defensive end Kamoko Toure. So what do you think about those injuries, and how do you think they're going to affect the game this week, Andrew?
I definitely think the loss of Rhodes is a big one. Rhodes was one of the cornerbacks where we really didn't have too many questions on this year. We kind of expected him to be solid and kind of hold down his spot, especially with the resurgence that he had this past year in the Colts scheme. And now with Rhodes down with that calf injury, you're going to have to rely on probably TJ Carey. TJ Carey is probably going to be the one that starts outside opposite Rock Ya-Sin with Kenny Moore in the slot. And TJ Carey, we didn't really see him too much in preseason. And when we did, it wasn't great. I mean, he gave up a huge play against the Carolina Panthers and then hurt his knee. So it's gonna be something to look at because of the capabilities of this wide receiver group that the Seahawks have. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett can bust open a defense at any time. So TJ Carey is going to have his hands full, and I think that's definitely the biggest one. Eric Fisher, I honestly wasn't really expecting him back this week. I think it's pretty remarkable that he's on pace to possibly be back next week even. And then Kamoko Toure, I mean, it just sucks for him because this kid had a pretty good training camp and he just can't stay healthy. And again, another groin injury, and this is a huge year for him. And if he can't stay healthy, I don't know if he's back next year with the Colts.
Yeah, I feel like if we had like a bingo chart of Colts players that, getting hurt this year or whatever, Kamoko Toure would kind of be the free space. It's just it's kind of just a given. It's really unfortunate. I make a bad joke about it right there, but it is unfortunate because we've seen what he can do when he's healthy and when he was kind of hitting his stride early in 2019. But since then, it's just kind of, it's been something you can't really rely on with him. And as someone who wants to see more Ben Banigou, I'm kind of excited for that possibility that we might see some more Banigou. Obviously, some more snaps. For Al-Qadim Muhammad will probably get some more snaps. So we'll see. We'll see how that kind of goes there on the defensive end. But like you said, Xavier Rhodes, that's a big injury. We're going to have to see what kind of happens with that one. I don't think it's as huge a deal as some people are making out, saying, Rock Ya-Sin's going to travel with DK Metcalf. That's just not how the Colts defense works. Right. Ya-Sin will still play on his right side. Carey will still play on the left side. And they're going to play that heavy cover 2 and cover 3 zone and also some quarters on third and long. So I don't really see it as being as huge of a deal as it would be in some systems, but it is still a big deal. Xavier Rhodes, good corner. You don't ever want to lose good players at premium positions like that. But that's all we really had for news here. That's everything that kind of came out today. So we're going to jump into some questions. We actually got quite a few on Twitter. So when you guys are jumping in there on the side there, we will get to your questions. We're just going to go through some of the Twitter ones right now. Max Holton asked, if the Colts win Sunday, is it on the arm of Wentz or the legs of Taylor on offense? What do you think?
I really think it's got to be on the legs of Taylor. And it's going to be tough because we talked about it just a few minutes ago before we went on air that the Seahawks are a very good run defense. I mean, Bobby Wagner and Jamal Adams definitely headline that. But Jonathan Taylor, he looked great in camp, and we don't want to put all the pressure on Wentz. I know the Colts don't want to put all the pressure on Wentz to go out there with 6 full practices in preseason and say, okay, go out and throw for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns and go win this game. No, the Colts are going to run the ball. It's going to be Jonathan Taylor, and then even Nyheim Hines. He's going to have a big role in that. The Colts really need to get Wentz comfortable, and the best way to do that is get the running game going and really rely on that, I think. Otherwise, if you put it all on Wentz, the Colts are going to have a tough time.
I absolutely agree with saying that we want it to be a big running game, but again, I just think I've been talking about this a lot. I think the Seahawks are going to commit to taking away the run, especially when they have 3 elite run defenders at all. They have an elite run defender at each level of their defense. They got Poona Ford in the middle, one of the better run defending defensive tackles in the league. Bobby Wagner at linebacker, and Jordan Brooks is also a good linebacker as well in the run game. And then obviously Jamal Adams right behind him, who's I think one of the best all-around safeties in football. They're going to stack the box. They're going to attack downhill, and they're going to stop the run. And they're going to kind of make the quarterback who was, 32nd, 33rd in the NFL last year, according to most rankings, they're going to make that quarterback beat them. So I think ultimately when it comes to what I'm looking at, I think it's going to be behind Carson Wentz is how the Colts are going to have to win this game, especially when you consider, too, that Russell Wilson's going to get his points. He's Russell Wilson. They got DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. They're going to put up some points. So you're going to really need to score with them, and I think the passing game is the best way to do that. So it's kind of trial by fire with Carson Wentz. His first game, only 6 practices against a defense that, while they don't really have the best cornerback group or best secondary, they will get after you and they'll blitz and they'll make you one-dimensional. I do think it's kind of be a trial by fire for Wentz, but if the Colts are going to win this game, they're going to need him to kind of come out clean in that one. Josh Carney, our boss man here, asked biggest 1v1 matchup in the trenches that you're most looking forward to watching once the All-22 is out from this game.
I think I'm going to go with the rookie. I'm going to go with Kwity Paye against Dwayne Brown. I think that's a lot of what Colts fans will want to see as well, because we saw Kwity Paye really dominate a lot of times in training camp when going up against Sam Tevi and Will Holden and guys that aren't on this Colts team anymore. But now it's Sunday. Now it's time to see when teams are game planning against you, when you're going up against a solid left tackle in Dwayne Brown. I want to see how Kwity Paye does. I mean, I'm not expecting a 2 to 3 sack performance, but I just want to see how that get off looks. I want to see how he has continued to transition from more of a straight up pass rusher to now using his speed to power move. Kind of the Colts are spreading him out a little wider than he was at Michigan. So I think for me, that's the matchup in the trenches that I'll be watching for on Sunday.
Yeah, I think that's obviously the biggest one because it's not Kwity Paye versus some backup tackle anymore. It's Kwity Paye versus Dwayne Brown, who's arguably the top 5 to 10 left tackle in football. I think it's going to be a great test for him early on, especially a guy who is probably the best in the league when it comes to anchoring himself against power. And that's what Kwity Paye's entire game is right now. So I think that's going to be just fascinating to watch. But the one for me I would go with is Julian Davenport versus Kerry Hyder, Benson Mayowa, Darrell Taylor, Alton Robinson. The Seahawks edge, I think Nathan says it really well here. It is sneaky good. It's not, there's no bona fide stud on the edge that they have, but they have a lot of guys who are capable of, 7, 8, 9, 10 sack seasons. I mean, I think Kerry Hyder had 9.5 last year. Benson Mayowa had 9 like 2 years ago. They have a very, very underrated edge rushing group. And I think seeing how Julian Davenport can kind of hang in there with them, it's going to be really big, especially because, we have the Rams coming up. Rams have a very active pass rush that are coming up next week, maybe against them. So I think that's going to be a big kind of under the radar storyline going into this game is how well can Julian Davenport hang in there against a pretty good edge rushing group, especially also with, like I said, with all the fire blitzes and crazy blitzes they're going to bring. That's something I'm really excited to watch. And hopefully it's positive that I'm watching on All-22, not, writing about how awful Julian Davenport is and how they need to make a move for a left tackle.
Right. And I think what kind of plays in Julian Davenport's hands is I feel like he's serviceable in pass protection. I think it's the running game that where he really struggles. So I fully expect Jack Doyle and Mo Alley-Cox to be out there helping him. Quentin Nelson he's not official that he'll play, but it looks like he's trending towards playing. Quentin's going to help. And I mean, Nyheim Hines and Jonathan Taylor aren't afraid to stick their nose in there either when they're going out on passing routes. So they're going to, I'm sure Frank Reich will try to help Julian Davenport when he can. Yeah,
absolutely. I think this one meant to say is the Colts weakest position, but Boo Radley, I think it's at Naptown Gill, 2005, sorry, is the Colts weakest position corner. Would you say it's the weakest position on the roster is cornerback right now?
I think it probably is in terms of depth, especially because we don't have questions about Kenny Moore and Xavier Rhodes, but I think you have questions about every single other corner with Rocky Sid and TJ Carey. Isaiah Rodgers, I think, has great potential, but I don't think he's quite there yet. And then even the guys that we picked up, Bo Pete Keys and Chris Wilcox, who the Colts picked up off waivers. They're just very raw prospects. So I think it's very top heavy because obviously Kenny Moore, I think we all agree how phenomenal Kenny Moore is. But once cornerback is a position that injuries occur quite often, and when you don't have that depth there, it can be a concern. So there's guys that have played a lot of snaps. I mean, TJ Carey has played a lot of snaps in this league, so that's encouraging, but I think it's definitely a concern, especially when the Colts front seven is loaded with talent. Offenses are going to try to go after those corners because it's the weakest link of the defense.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's the weakest link of the defense, especially when you factor in depth. I think maybe if you just go for overall talent of the group, maybe wide receiver is a bit weaker just because we don't have anybody who's proven there right now. I mean, T.Y. Hilton's out with an injury, and after that, Michael Pittman's your top producer and Zach Pascal, and they're both they both have shown so far they're just adequate number 2s or 3s. Hopefully they can take that next step. But yeah, I have to go with corner. I just think that depth is definitely shaky, especially when you consider Chris Wilcox has never played in the NFL. He's a rookie this year. Bo Peep Keys only played 1 game in his career, and it was very poorly graded by Pro Football Focus and other places. And then obviously Rockison has a struggle. TJ Carey's, solid, but he's just kind of solid at best. I do think that group is pretty shaky, and they really need someone to step up this year. Next question we have is from Buffalo Bills Reddit. He's always active on Colt stuff. Big fan of his. With injuries and Carson Wentz missing so much of the preseason, who do you think will step up as the top of the wide receiver group?
Now, if we're talking about just until T.Y. Hilton returns, I really do think it is going to be Michael Pittman. It just seeing him live in training camp this year, there's something different about him, and it's almost like he's ready to take that next step. Now, will he actually do it? We'll have to see. But he's not backing down from any corner. I mean, there were times where he was making plays over Kenny Moore and Xavier Rhodes. And I think that just instills the confidence in him. He seems much more confident this year. And I think he wants to be that physical presence that he showed in flashes last year, kind of take that to a whole nother level. And I think it also helps that he had a full off season. He's not a rookie anymore. And he was able to work out with Carson Wentz and start to create that chemistry where he didn't necessarily create that chemistry with Phillip Rivers until towards the end of the year. So I think Michael Pittman Jr. wants to take over, and I think he needs to take over and be the top receiver until T.Y. Hilton returns. Number one, if the Colts want to win some of these games until T.Y. comes back. But then number two, to just give the coaching staff and this team confidence that he can be a top receiver down the line. Yeah.
I mean, best case scenario is it is Pittman who is that guy who steps up. That's who we all want, who we kind of need as a young receiver to step up and make that and take that next step. But I'm actually going to go with Zach Pascal. I think we've seen the last couple of years that when in doubt, it's been Pascal. With Brissett, when Brissett came in, Rivers came in last year and Pascal became one of his more reliable players. I want to be Pittman. I want to be Paris Campbell, but Zach Pascal just does so many things that just makes life so easy for a quarterback. Winning over the middle. He has the ability he's a good route runner. Not a great one, but he's a good route runner who can get open. I think honestly, if you just take into account route running of all the healthy receivers that are right now on the roster, he's probably the best one, or at least most nuanced one right now. And I think that's going to play a big factor in him producing. So I don't know if he's going to be a huge producer, like 100-yard games or anything like that. But I think when you're looking at a guy who's going to consistently put up, 50, 60 yards a game, I think that can be Zach Pascal, especially, again, new quarterback. They want to go to the reliable target, and that's going to be Zach Pascal. So that's who I think steps up with T.Y. Hilton now. Before we get into more questions on Twitter, I do want to jump into some of your guys' questions here, just so you guys are feeling acknowledged and feeling like you guys are in the conversation. So we got, how many carries will each of our 3 running backs get? Juan, if you're still in there, do you mean this Sunday? Do you mean kind of overall on the season? I'm going to assume this Sunday is what I'm going to go with, if you want to answer that way, Andrew.
Yeah, so if we're going this Sunday, I think what we can see is if it all just kind of depends on what Seattle does. I think the Colts want to use Jonathan Taylor more as a bell cow back this year in terms of running the ball. And I think, as we saw last year, the more carries that Jonathan Taylor gets, I think the better he gets throughout the game. Mm-hmm. He's not necessarily a guy where he'll have a couple carries and look to break them out. That physical style of running that he has, it wears down on defenses. And then once you get to the third or fourth quarter, that's when he starts breaking out those big runs, because not only the physicality of his running style, but he's got that speed, that burst that he can make any run go home run. So I think they want to. Will the Seahawks allow that to happen? We'll see. I think in terms of touches, maybe Nyheim Hines will get more carries Jonathan Taylor, but in terms of touches, I think Nyheim Hines, if you have all of the catches that he'll probably get plus all the carries, I think that'll be the top running back. And then Marlon Mack and Jordan Wilkins, I think, will come in spells, but I think it's really that two-headed monster of Taylor and Hines that we're going to see primarily the most of the game.
Yeah, I think It's funny when it comes to the Colts and it comes to running backs. I've always got the feel that they're always going to be a committee team, always under Reich. 2018, 2019, even when they were really hyping up Marlon going into 2019, they still kind of always said, Jordan Wilkins will get a bunch of carries, Nyheim Hines will. This year, you've seen in almost every single press conference thing, Reich, Brady. I think even Carson Wentz said a couple of times that Jonathan Taylor's the guy. He's gonna be the bell cow. They've said bell cow multiple times, which I've never seen them say. So they're going to feed Jonathan Taylor. And I think it's, when you look at carries, it's probably going to be like a 75, 70 split that he's going to get, a majority of those carries. I think Hines will definitely get his carries. And because I think Hines has kind of established himself as that number 2 back, not only in the pass game, but also as the run game. And then kind of Marlon Mack and Jordan Wilkins will spell here and there. But yeah, I think if we're going for this Sunday, if we're going just carries, I think you can expect Jonathan Taylor to get 70, 75%, maybe up to 80%. Hines will probably get, whatever leaves over for like 4 or 5% for Marlon Mack. But I think it's going to be, it's going to be Jonathan Taylor's show. And I think we should all be pretty excited about that. He definitely showed some good things last year. What do we got? Do y'all think Hines will have more receiving or rushing yards this game? I'm definitely going to go with receiving because I just think it's going to be that type of game where it's a heavy screen game. It's going to be heavy short passes and stuff because those fire blitzes, and I think it's going to be throwing at that blitz and letting Hines do a little more after the catch. But what do you think? More rushing or receiving yards for Nyheim this week?
Yeah, I'm going to go with receiving as well. I think you make a great point that I think Frank Reich knows that the Seahawks are going to blitz a lot, and they're going to try to instill on Carson Wentz, which we haven't really seen Carson Wentz be a guy that likes to take the check down. Mm-hmm. But I think with what Frank Reich is trying to instill at him, that the hero ball isn't needed. You need to trust your playmakers. And with them wanting to get the ball in Nyheim Hines' hands at a much bigger rate, you're going to see Nyheim really get those check downs. They're going to set up some screens for him and really let him go to work in the open field.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited whenever he gets the ball in his hands. So there we go. Lil Nug Robbie asks, all defense about making the drive to Indy from Baltimore to cheer on my favorite team in week 1. Do you do it? I think you got to. All the players are saying you got to get out there and you got to cheer for the team. So I think, you have the money and you have the means. I would say get out there and have some fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to be there. I'm a season ticket holder with the Colts, so I'll certainly be there. And it's a sold-out Lucas Oil Stadium right now. Jim Irsay was saying how they're putting up comfortable lawn chairs around the stadium so they could pack more people in there. It's going to be a great experience. So if you can, I definitely recommend it. And
you get to meet Seymour Squid. Seymour Squid's one of our favorites on all of these live streams. So if you get to meet Seymour Squid, I can't think of a reason why you wouldn't want to go. And then we got one from Matt here. Matt's always been great with interaction, jumping on these live streams here. But is Strawn going to get a decent amount of meaningful reps this week since our wide receivers are thin? And actually, that kind of goes in with the question I have here, I think. Jason Sanders on Twitter asks, over under 20 targets this year for Strawn. So first answer, do you think he gets meaningful reps this week? And then the over under on 20 reception or 20 targets actually for Strawn this season.
I really don't see him getting too many meaningful reps. I think the Colts are really going to stick with Pittman, Pascal, and Campbell. And then if a guy does need to come in, Ashton Doolin is that next man up. I could even see Kiki Cutie getting elevated from the practice squad and getting some more reps. You may see Strawn in certain situations, but as far as seeing him as a vocal part of the offense this weekend, no, I don't see it. I think what they would want to keep him in specific packages, maybe red zone to use his big body, or maybe on certain kind of like maybe second and long situations, maybe on quick slants, things of that nature. So I really don't see the meaningful reps because I think the Colts are really wanting to take it slow and let him develop at a slow pace. So that way he can get everything down. Yeah, for sure. And then when it comes to the season, 20 targets, I think I could see him getting a bit above that. I did just do an article. So Jason, if you're listening to this or Matt, I'm sure you guys have read it already, but I did an article on what are reasonable expectations for Michael Strawn this year. And most 7th round picks, in their first year, one, it's very unlikely they even make the roster. So Strawn's already got that. But I think the most productive season I saw, I want to say it was Sharon Peak with 19 catches for 180 yards.
and like 2 touchdowns. Thank you, Kyle. I'm glad you read it. Yeah, it's tough to produce in year one, especially like the Colts did with Des Patman last year. They're going to take it slow. And honestly, I think it's more likely that we see more healthy scratch games from Michael Strawn than we see him actually being active, because he doesn't bring that special teams component. When it comes down to it, say the Colts typically only activate 5 receivers on Sunday, maybe 6, but they have 6 on the roster right now. But if they end up bringing up Cootie, then Strawn's going to be that odd man out and be that healthy scratch. I don't know. I'm not saying he is definitely going to be the healthy scratch this week, but it wouldn't shock me if he was. So when it comes to this week, maybe he has a role, and maybe they do get him in. Maybe he's further ahead than what we are expecting. But I think for the year, maybe a little over 20-something targets. Maybe not huge role this time early, and maybe getting some more targets if it comes down to injuries later in the season. What were you gonna say?
Well, I think if anything, Strawn will get more targets and more playing time now because T.Y. Hilton is out. Because once T.Y. Hilton comes back, those 5 of Hilton, Pittman, Campbell, Pascal, and Doolin, most of the time, if they're healthy, they're going to be active on game day. So with Hilton being out, I think Strawn has a better chance of being active on game day and seeing a role throughout these 4 to 5 games, whatever T.Y. Hilton will be out.
Yeah, it really comes down to how they view his ability to play in multiple positions and play on special teams, because I think Marcus Brady said it like 2 weeks ago that they're still trying to bring him along to play multiple wide receiver positions. Ashton Doolin knows how to play different positions. Des Patman can play different positions. Right now, Strawn's kind of stuck in that Z spot, which is T.Y. Hilton's backup, which is great for him. But if that's the only position you can play, Doolin and Patman can't play it, along with Doolin being able to play special teams. So it kind of hurts you in your ability to play, early on. So we'll see how that really goes. And hopefully he's ready to go early in the season. We get to see, this 6'4", 4'4", 40 speed guy, or 6'5", I think is what he is, out there on game day. But take it slow. We get to see him eventually. I'm sure he'll be fine in the long run. I mean, even making the roster for a 7th round pick is a long shot, and it's great to even see him, make it this far. Keenan, everyone probably follows Keenan on Twitter. He's great. I guess for some people hate him as well, but very, very straight shooter, which I like. But he asked, how much do you agree or disagree with this statement? I actually really like this question. If the Colts beat the Seahawks, it will be because DeForest Buckner is the best player on the field on Sunday.
This is kind of a tough question,
right?
It really is.
I'm kind of sitting in that yes-ish range is kind of where I'm like, yeah. I mean,
yeah, and I think I'm almost leaning no, because I'm almost leaning no, because I think really the key to this game is going to be the offense, because we know Russell Wilson is going to put up points. We know that the Seahawks offense is going to get theirs, but Carson Wentz, I think, is going to be how he performs against such an aggressive defense in the Seattle Seahawks. Because like you've mentioned, they blitz from everywhere, and only having 6 full practices with your team, I mean, you can do all the work you want in the off season, but those live game reps are just different. And so I really think it's going to be how Carson Wentz plays, because we know DeForest Buckner is probably going to wreak havoc on the inside, because I mean, the Seahawks offensive line, especially on the interior, isn't very good. And so I think, while Buckner will definitely be a force, it's going to come down to how Carson Wentz can perform against that aggressive defense.
Yep. Kyle, we'll get to that comment in a second. The way I see it is, if the Colts, so it's kind of, I'm cheating, Keaton. I will agree. If the Colts do win, DeForest Buckner was probably the best player on the field, because DeForest Buckner, if the Colts win, will be the best player on the field because he's just so good. But I think the factor of if them winning or not winning really comes down to how Carson Wentz plays. But no matter how Carson Wentz plays, DeForest Buckner is still going to be the best player on the field. I mean, it's a tough question, because I think, we could see a very real scenario where DeForest Buckner has, 4 sacks and the Colts still lose because of how the offense plays on the Colts side. So I think it could go kind of either way. But I think ultimately DeForest Buckner will be the best player on the field, especially for the Colts, but it really comes down to Carson Wentz. And like you said, how he combats this heavy fire blitz defense. That's also going to make sure you can't run on them. Just a very, very good one. But yeah, that was a great question, Keenan. Makes you think. And I love questions like that.
Yeah. Well, even in the Super Bowl, DeForest Buckner was arguably the best player on the field of the 49ers against the Chiefs, and the Chiefs still pulled it out. So I think that's a very good point.
Yeah. And then we got Kyle saying that people hate me. A lot of people hate you, Zach, since you don't show bias or pull punches, but I'm all for it. Yeah, honestly, Kyle, I think for the most part, people do like that about me. I will say that especially this time of year, it's the toughest for someone like me because I try to see it the way that I see it. And I try not to, be stuck in that fan mindset where we're a Super Bowl contender every single year. But it is what it is. Honestly, I love it. I love how people are so passionate. It's just how, it's football. Some things are just not supposed to make sense. And I think the way that fans think about the game is one of those things that's just not supposed to make sense. And that's why, I'm somewhat analytical, somewhat football fan, somewhat, some things just don't make sense. And I think the way that fans react to the game and how emotional they get and how invested they get is just part of it all. And I feel like if you're upset about that, then you're in the wrong business for sure. So it doesn't ever really get to me anymore. But yeah, people do. Some people hate me. Some people like me. So I'm assuming all you guys. I mean, all I really care about is if Seymour Squid appreciate it.
Sounds like I need to meet Seymour Squid at the game on Sunday.
Yeah, man. We all need to meet Seymour Squid. Seymour Squid. All right, what do we got next? We got all right, we got all these Rock is Sing questions like we always do. If Rock has the same season as last year, basically saying he doesn't progress much, does he get cut at the end of the year? I don't like to deal with heavy hypotheticals. And I think this is, it's a hypothetical where you have to, kind of extrapolate over an entire season. So it's tough for me to be hypothetical here. But let's say Rock Ya-Sin has a similar season that he just had where gets benched towards the end of the year, looks good in zone coverage, but it's just not consistent enough, especially with his man coverage issues. Do you think there's a chance he gets cut at the end of the year, Andrew?
I really don't think he gets cut. I could see the Colts taking a cornerback in the second round when they have their draft pick, but I don't see a situation where Rock Ya-Sin gets cut. The Colts, I mean, we already talked about it. The Colts aren't deep enough at corner to cut Rock Ya-Sin.
Yeah.
Even though Rock Ya-Sin struggles, he's still one of their top 3 to 4 cornerbacks on this team.
Oh, dude, there will literally be people who would tell you that Chris Wilcox is better, like straight up, than Rock Ya-Sin. I mean, people. Gosh. I don't know if you've seen it as much as I have, but people do not like Rock Ya-Sin. And like, part of me gets it because again, it's a corner. It's just how it is, and it's like it's like not bad because I don't think Rock Ya-Sin's horrible, but it's like a below average left tackle. Everyone's gonna hate that guy. It's kind of like Mark Lewinsky. Everyone says Mark Lewinsky is this terrible player who needs to be cut. I do feel like they finally come around a little bit on him this past year, but like from 2018 to 2019, he was this awful guard who needs to be cut, and they need to throw Danny Pinter in there or Will Fries or Chris Reed, and it's like, Lewinsky's good, man. And it's just like, Rock Ya-Sin's obviously not where Lewinsky is, but like, man, people just do not like him.
And I think maybe some of that comes with where he was drafted, top of the second round. People are thinking Rock Ya-Sin should come in here and be a solid starter or a guy that could possibly have number 1 corner potential. And not all corners that are drafted high are like that. I mean, there's flashes there, and I think we need to kind of take a step back and look at it as a whole, because Rock Ya-Sin, he's had some great moments. I mean, there's been some games where he's had lockdown coverage, and then there's just other games where, I mean, he can't cover anything. And he just panics. The Green Bay game last year is one that really sticks out to me, giving up those huge pass interference penalties. And it's just the consistency. Rock has the tools. Now it's about putting it all together. And I think it's on Rock. Xavier Rhodes has been trying to help him, and we'll see what James Rowe, the new cornerbacks coach, can do with him as far as getting him on his technique, kind of keeping him calm and seeing if he can progress into a solid starter throughout the year.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say that when it comes to Rocky Sin, I'll throw Kyle's comment up here because I agree. His footwork, his hands, and also just his ability in press man coverage. I think it's just very poor right now. But the Colts were able to trade Quincy Wilson for a 6th-round pick when he was a former 2nd-round pick. Rocky Sin's had a much better career in the NFL thus far than Quincy Wilson has at all. So they could get a 6th-round pick. There's no chance they're going to cut Rocky Sin. They could probably get something if it really came down to it. But that's all hypotheticals. I don't like to to go too much into hypotheticals there. We got one from the Curious Colt, which if you guys don't follow him on Twitter, he's a great follow. Just asks a lot of really cool questions, really interactive stuff. If the Colts incorporate more cover 3, how might that change snap counts and who will need to step up in that role? So I'll start with this one. I think the Colts actually ran a lot more cover 3 last year than they ever have under Flus. He's really kind of instituted just more cover 3 into the defense, which I really like. And it's been a lot more of just kind of match coverage, which if you guys don't know, I'll probably do a whole thing on it again this year after a couple games here with the Colts. But match coverage is kind of like it's zone coverage, but with man coverage principles to kind of take away those vertical routes that would typically kill a zone defense. So I think the Colts did a great job instituting that a little bit last year, and I think they could even do more of it this year. They still ran cover 2 at the highest rate in the NFL last season. I do want to see them kind of get away from cover 2 because I think cover 2 is kind of a bit antiquated at this point. It's just, running it as much as the Colts have the last couple of years, I don't think is a formula for success anymore. So I think getting more into cover 3 and honestly getting more into the cover 3, it really puts more of a pressure on Julian Blackmon to be a top safety because, when you have the halves, obviously you have a lot of field to cover, but when you're in that middle third and a cover 3 defense, I mean, you really have to be able to cover ground, especially if they are doing match coverage concepts. So I think it's a big thing for Julian Blackmon, big thing for Khari Willis too, because you have to have your interchangeable safeties. There's no such thing as strong safety and free safety anymore. You have to have interchangeable safeties. So having the ability to switch Khari Willis up there, switch Julian Blackmon up there, I think that's just going to be a big thing, and those are the guys who kind of need to step up. But what do you think about having more cover 3 on this defense?
Yeah, and that's exactly where I was going with this. It's really all going to depend on how Julian Blackmon and how Khari Willis can handle that. And I think the Colts really love their young safety tandem, and I think that was a big reason why you start to see more cover 3. I think no matter what, Matt Eberflus is going to stick to the base cover 2 most of the time. That's just how he's came up through the ranks, and that's his philosophy. But I do think when you have safeties of the caliber of Khari Willis, especially with his football IQ, I think he's one of the smartest guys in terms of football IQ on this team. And then Julian Blackmon, I mean, we saw what he did as a rookie. Now with a full off season of health, a full off season with training camp, I think we're going to see him really take that next step. And when you have an athletic safety like Julian Blackmon, who has corner experience too. I mean, he mostly played corner at Utah. So we know he can cover a lot of ground. It's more of, are his instincts going to be there? And how is he going to use his play recognition to be able to cover that middle third of the field? So I think that's the key in all of this. And if we see those guys even take a next step as far as what they can do, not only physically, but then mentally, especially with Julian Blackmon, I think cover 3 could be a staple for this Colts defense.
Yeah, absolutely. We got one from Matt Dawson here. He says, on a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned are you about the Seahawks pass rush?
I'm probably going to go maybe a 6, because the big question mark for me is just Julian Davenport. And I think that you can scheme to help with the left tackle, but I mean, Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, Braden Smith really don't give me much cause for concern at all. Mark Lewinsky it seems like every single year he gets a little bit better as well. It's just going to be how we can contain Julian Davenport and kind of hide him as an offensive unit.
Well, I'm sorry. The correct answer was 5. Some more squids.
Hey, I was close. You were close.
You were close. You were in the ballpark. You were within the range. But I'm actually going to go with the 7, I think, for this one. And it's really comes down to, again, those fire blitzes, those fire zones that the Seahawks do. Jamal Adams, I think, honestly, we watched Kenny Moore. Kenny Moore is obviously an elite pass rushing defensive back. But I think Jamal Adams is probably the best I've seen. Not take Kenny Moore's in the top 3, but I think Jamal Adams, he's just unblockable one-on-one. And he's just an extreme asset when it comes to rushing the passer. So I think when you have him coming into the blitz, you have Bobby Wagner, who's going to be mugging that A-gap. You have just guys firing from different spots. I'm not really too concerned about the one-on-one matchups. I'm more so concerned on how Carson Wentz reacts to these fire blitzes and reacts to, you're going to have 7 guys lined up across the line of scrimmage, and only 3 or 4 of them are actually going to come at you. But how do you react to that pressure, not knowing which guy's coming, not knowing where they're going to be zone dropping and spot dropping? So I think that kind of scares me more. I wouldn't go higher than a 7 just because, the next week we have Aaron Donald coming up against us. I mean, that's in and of itself just even way scarier. We have I think we have the Steelers later in the season, and we have the Ravens coming up too after that. The next 5 weeks, whatever, we have the Ravens with their way they blitz. So there are scarier teams with just better pass rushers right up. But yeah, those fire blitzes and those fire zones, man, they do scare me. And I think that it's definitely something to be worried about come this game, especially, again, with Carson Wentz's struggles the last year or so with pressure. Let's see what else we get. Were you going to say something there?
Well, I was going to say, I wonder if the Seahawks are going to use a lot of press coverage as well. And if that's the case on these fire blitzes, it's going to be up to these Colts wide receivers to really get off that press coverage quick, because Carson Wentz can't hold on to the ball back there. And if he does, he's going to get annihilated. So it's going to be up to, I'm going to look at the 2 most physical receivers on the team in Zach Pascal and Michael Pittman to really use their physicality and get off that press coverage.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to shout out who we got here. Kyle Stewart giving us a like on Facebook. Thank you, Kyle. And then we got Krista Patrick on Facebook giving us the love right there. So appreciate you guys there on Facebook channels. I really wish Twitter would have some kind of like thing as well to throw in there.
Yeah.
But at least Facebook, we kind of get to see it up there. That's kind of cool. We got one more here from Twitter, and then we can get into all your guys' questions here on the side. So definitely send in your questions. We will start getting to them here after this next one. But I want to say this guy's name right. Vineeth Sindagi. I really hope I said it right. I really apologize if I didn't. He says, we know Phillip Rivers took some time before he hit his stride last year. What does Carson Wentz have to do to hit his stride sooner this season? Or what would you consider as a good start to the year for Carson Wentz?
I think for me, a good start to the year for Carson Wentz is just to show that he grasped the concept that Frank Reich is trying to instill in him, that he doesn't have to be all on Carson Wentz's shoulders. You don't need to play hero ball all the time. I mean, the Colts are going to want him to do some of those hero ball plays, because that brings out the athleticism and the playmaking ability that Carson Wentz is good at. It's when you are overthinking things and really just make sure that he's staying within the limits of the offense. And I do think it's going to start slow for Carson Wentz, but I think we're going to see a similar progression throughout the year, where maybe after those first 5 games, maybe after that first month or so, T.Y. Hilton comes back, because I really think that's going to be huge for Carson Wentz. We're going to start to see what Frank Reich has been molding. We're going to see how much differently he is with his mechanics. I mean, you did a great series all summer long about what Carson Wentz has been doing, working with Adam Dedeaux and really trying to get down to the basics of rebuilding his mechanics. So I think that we're definitely going to see a slower Carson Wentz. I'm not expecting 2020 Carson Wentz, because I think that's absolutely rock bottom. And if we do, serious cause for concern. But I do expect him. I don't expect him to light it on fire, but I think towards the end of the year, we're probably going to see a very productive Carson Wentz. The
correct answer was just decisiveness. This is my favorite bit. We're gonna do this Seymour Squid. We need you to show up every Friday just so I can have this bit.
I took a 5-minute explanation and he put it into 1 word. So Seymour Squid needs to take my job.
Nathan Please says, poison the pocket, decisive, zippy throws. I like the word zippy. I'm going to start putting that into film stuff. The thing for me is, obviously I'm going to be studying it early in the season. I want to see where his mechanics have kind of gotten to early in this year, especially like I said. I mean, the first couple games this year are against the Seahawks with their fire blitzes, and then we get the Rams with Aaron Donald, and then I think it's week 5, it's Baltimore with that like 70% blitz happy defense. I want to see how his mechanics are under pressure and just how he is able to withstand that pressure. I think that's going to be a big thing. But these first 5 games are against 5 teams that made the playoffs a year ago, or 5 teams that nearly made. I think the Dolphins missed the playoffs. So 4 out of the 5 are against playoff teams, and the other one's against a team that had a winning record. The biggest thing for me for this to be a win those first 5 games is at least come out around 2-3, 3-2. At the worst.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta stay afloat. We kind of said it last year with Phillip Rivers going into that. There was that 4-game stretch where it was Tennessee, Green Bay, Tennessee, and Baltimore, and it was really just stay afloat. And the Colts went 2-2 in that stretch, and they were able to make the playoffs as the 7th seed. It's really just stay afloat during this tough stretch and win a couple games. I think that's going to be really big. And no matter how Carson Wentz plays, just do enough to win these games early on. Because if you start 1-4, 0-5, then this fan base is going to turn quickly. And
right.
We've seen that firsthand.
Yeah, and after those first 5 games, the Colts have the easiest strength of schedule in the league.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's some tough games. I mean, obviously, Buffalo's going to be a tough one. Tampa Bay is going to be a tough one. I think the 49ers in San Francisco on Sunday Night Football. I'll be at that game. That one's going to be a tough one. We've got some tough ones, but I think if we can just, like you said, stay afloat, make it through this stretch. The Colts, I think, will have a chance to win each one of these games. I don't count them out in any of them, but they do need to take care of business so that way they can make some hay throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got about 15 minutes or so left that we're going to go here, guys. So send your questions here on the side. We will get to as many questions as we see on here. Nathan asked earlier, how much of Marvell Tell and EJ Speed will we see this week? Well, I don't think we're going to see much Marvin Tell. Fun, really fun story about Marvin Tell. A couple years ago, I had a trending tweet or whatever where it was like one of those Barstool tweets where like, who fits this description? It was like asshole, like bar this big or whatever. And then like production and like quality of work were like super low. And I put Dave Portnoy. And all the Barstool fans came at me. And I guess that week I wrote a Marvell Tell film piece. And I got this email from a Barstool fan saying that nobody gives a shit about Marvin Tell. and Marvin Tell's not even a real NFL player. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Marvin Tell does not play in the NFL. So yeah, Marvin Tell I don't think will play at all, but Marvell Tell, unless he gets the call up, will be on the practice squad. EJ Speed, I think it's be mostly special teams because I think Zaire Franklin kind of locked down that Sam spot, right?
Yeah, he did, and I think the Colts probably won't be too much in their base 4-3 this weekend, and if it is, it's going to be for run support. And Zaire Franklin, I think, is the better run defender than EJ Speed, but EJ Speed has a core place on special teams that we'll see.
Yep, absolutely. Let's see, we got some other ones in here. I just keep seeing Seymour Squid answering all the questions. Here we go. Colts 365 asks, how was Wentz pre-snap in Philly? Good at identifying. I don't think that he was the one who identified in Philly. I want to say it was Jason Kelce, which would make sense. I mean, Jason Kelce is very good, older center in the league and has been like an all-pro in the past. So I think it was Jason Kelce who identified most of I think he identified the mic and identified a lot of the blitz. But I think Carson Wentz was given some of that responsibility at line, but I don't think it was the whole thing. I don't know what it's going to be. I think what will be a big thing that we see this week will be, is it going to be Ryan Kelly identifying? Is it going to be Carson Wentz? We saw last year it was all Phillip Rivers. It was completely Phillip Rivers. So yeah, that'll be something that would be interesting to see this week is how much is Wentz kind of in that process of identifying blitzes and identifying the mic and stuff like that.
And we may even see that change throughout the year where the more that Carson Wentz gets comfortable with this Colts team, we might see Ryan Kelly start out by identifying and making the calls at the line, but then Carson Wentz kind of takes that over because, yeah, like you said, it was all Phillip Rivers with his immaculate football mind. Andrew Luck obviously took care of all that, and then with Jacoby Brissett, I'm pretty sure Ryan Kelly handled all that. So it changes on a quarterback-to-quarterback basis.
Yeah, for sure. Colts loyalist jumps on in here. Interior rush will be the most important type pressure. That being said, what's the bigger key to a Colts victory on Sunday? Quality safety play or defensive end play?
I think defensive end play because, and while the Seahawks will definitely take their shots and Julian Blackmon and Kari Willis need to be ready for that. It's going to be all about being able to contain Russell Wilson because, and I talked about this on my podcast, when do we see Russell Wilson, those highlight plays? It's when he scrambles outside the pocket and then he's able to launch a 50-yard bomb to DK Metcalf down the field. It's all going to be about making sure we contain Russell Wilson in the pocket and don't let him get outside and start to play hero ball. So it's going to be on a rookie, Kwity Paye. It's going to be on Al-Qadim Muhammad and Tyquan Lewis. And then when we are on those third down passing situations, when you bring in a Ben Banogu to rush off the edge with Kwity Paye, you move someone like Tyquan Lewis inside to rush with DeForest Buckner. I think that's going to be big because the longer that Russell Wilson holds the ball and can stay contained in that pocket, the better chance that the Colts are going to wrap him up.
Yeah, and it's kind of tough to say this because people always take this as a major criticism of Russell Wilson, but he's one of the few guys in the history of this league who actually do this and thrive. Is he invites pressure. It's kind of like Deshaun Watson when Deshaun Watson was in Houston. It kind of invites pressure and kind of thrives in that backyard style where I think Wilson does it even more than Watson, and I think Wilson's even better under that pressure that he invites. So a big thing for these defensive ends isn't just beating your guy or anything like that. It's also making sure you're making that tackle or keeping him just confined in that pocket. Because if he gets out, like you said, it's going to be a big play. I honestly think in my life watching football, and honestly, it's only been since like 2005, so it's really not that long. But I think Russell Wilson probably throws the best deep ball while on the move. I mean, it's just perfect touch every time, right to where it needs to be. And that's what we're going to kill. We saw it last year in the playoff game against the Bills. Josh Allen, when he got outside the pocket, was able to get the ball down the field. I mean, big things happen for the Bills. So, it's not just those defensive ends just getting by their guy. It's also containing the pocket and keeping Russell Wilson kind of contained there. So, I'm going to go with defensive ends there. And honestly, the biggest thing for safety play for me is just staying healthy because the depth there is pretty rough right now. Right. Matt had a couple questions earlier that I missed because he didn't put a question mark at the end. But Matt asks expectations of linebackers not named Darius.
Bobby Okereke, I think, has a chance to really assert himself as a linebacker that the Colts can keep long term. I mean, he showed that he was the better player last year over Anthony Walker. I mean, towards the end of the year, it was pretty much 75-25 in favor of Okereke in terms of snaps. And he's really been the star of training camp. I mean, he was going up against Jacob Eason and Sam Ellinger, but one of the biggest criticisms about Bobby Okereke was he wasn't able to put those turnover plays where he was in the right position, but he just couldn't finish. He'd drop an interception or he just couldn't make the play. He was just a little too slow. We're starting to see him put that together now. And obviously training camp is different on Sundays, but if we can see Bobby Okereke really, really take that next step, and I think he can, we're going to have a couple linebackers that are probably some of the most athletic linebackers in the league. And I just love how fast Bobby Okereke plays just all over the field. And I think the Colts can use that to their advantage. As far as Zaire Franklin, I think he's still going to be a rock on special teams, solid run defender. And then the other guys, I mean, they're pretty much all used just for special teams, especially Jordan Glasgow, who will, if he's touching the field on defense, the Colts are in trouble. But as a special teams player, I think he's got fantastic potential. So really, with the Colts only playing two linebackers most of the time, I think it's all on Bobby Okereke.
Yeah, and Okereke's given the very, very tough coverage assignments. Leonard, I always say that Darius Leonard is the one who's asked to play forward. Bobby Okereke is the one who's asked to play backwards. And that's much tougher. It's much tougher, being responsible for things going on behind you. And I think Bobby Okereke's done a great job at it the last couple of years. It's just taking that next step. And like you said, adding that consistency, adding, the ability to finish plays, I think is a big thing for him. And there were a couple last year where I think it was against the Bengals. He would have had an amazing pick reading a coverage thing right behind him, except he had his busted hand, so he couldn't make the catch. So it's just, I just want to see him take that next step. I think he is an ascending player who's had a great training camp. Now put it on the field on Sundays and make yourself marketable, make yourself a guy going forward. Seymour Squid asked us, will Tony Corrente ruin my afternoon? All refs do. It's just hopefully, I mean, was he the guy who did the Packers game last year? I hope not.
The Packers game last year was Hockley.
So, was it? Okay, yeah. As long as we don't get that guy, then I'm good.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, Tony. I mean, Look, if the Colts lose, we'll find someone to blame. So we can blame Tony unless the Colts win. Do you see Leonard kind of shadowing Russ? I do think they will in a way. I mean, like I said, Darius Leonard's role is to play forward. So on passing downs, what you see is it's kind of a lot like what the Seahawks do, except the fire blitzes that Flus does are just not as insane or chaotic. Is Leonard will almost always be mugging that A gap right over that center. In order to kind of create that pressure, that the offensive line adjustments to move inward. And then he'll either blitz from that center spot or above that center spot, or he'll just kind of stay in more of a flat zone or stay in a kind of a man coverage or a spy coverage there on the quarterback. We've seen that a lot. We've seen a lot with whenever they play Deshaun Watson. So I think, yeah, we could see him in a way shadowing Russell Wilson for a lot of this game.
And I think while he will spy him, I'm interested to see if Eberflus uses him more on blitzes with Russ, because if they're going to try to contain him in the pocket with Buckner and Stewart up front, have Pay and Al-Qadim Muhammad kind of on the sides, do you with Grover Stewart and Buckner getting so much attention in the middle, Darius Leonard can probably come up free right through the middle many times, and it'll be up to him to wrap up Russell Wilson, because we've seen him do it to Deshaun Watson, and Deshaun will squirm his way out and make a play. It's all about making sure Darius Leonard can wrap him up and bring him down. So I think that's going to be a big matchup to watch, is how Russell Wilson goes against Darius Leonard, and can Darius Leonard kind of contain Russell Wilson himself?
Absolutely. And then I think we got Seymour Squid logging off here. He's saying tailgating in lot 2 before the game. Andrew, write that down. You're going to go hang out with Seymour Squid, okay? All right. Take pictures. We'll post them on the site. No, I'm just kidding. We'll post them on the site or anything. But yeah, you guys go into the game, have fun. I'm a little far away. I won't be able to make it out there. Tell Chad to pay me a little bit more. Maybe we'll get out there. We got 2 more questions here. 2 more. Kyle, we have to answer Kyle's because Kyle's been great and sticking throughout this whole thing. So will we see Wentz airing a couple out, or is Frank going to hold him back? Well, I guess the better question is, can we provide enough protection for that? I think if the protection holds and Carson Wentz still always will have that hero ball mindset. I mean, if he can get free on a couple of these blitzes and get outside the pocket, yeah, he'll air him out. That's one thing you never have to worry about when it comes to Carson Wentz. He's going to throw the ball down the field. It's not going to be like, it's funny. Phillip Rivers was awesome last year. Love Phillip Rivers. I think so much of what he brought to the team was so good for the organization. But you're getting the polar opposite in Carson Wentz, and just the complete opposite. I guess outside of a couple boneheaded turnover plays every now and then, but like you're going to get this hero ball athletic quarterback compared to last year, where this is super smart, limited, limited arm quarterback. So yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of it this year with Wentz airing the ball out. The only issue I think is who's going to be that guy who's going to be able to win down the field. Will it be the Michael Pittman that we saw in college, where he could go up and get it down the field? Will Paris Campbell transition from being the lowest ADOT receiver in the draft a couple years ago to being a guy who can win down the field? So I think those are going to be big things to watch. But if Wentz has it his way, he's going to get the ball down the field. I don't think Reich's going to hold him back too much. I think he'll let him air it out a couple times.
Yeah, absolutely. And if training camp is any indication, the Colts definitely look more vertical as a team this year. And I think especially once T.Y. Hilton comes back, and people, I think one of my biggest qualms with some people on Colts Twitter are saying that T.Y. Hilton's lost it. When you look at the film, I mean, defenses still respect T.Y. Hilton greatly. And the reason last year where we'd see these wide receivers so wide open is because T.Y. Hilton goes on a deep crosser and 2 to 3 guys go with him, and it just leaves the other guy wide open. So T.Y. Hilton, even though he's not putting up those numbers, the Colts use him as a decoy and really use him to get other guys open as well. So I think that's definitely going to help once TY comes back. I think Paris Campbell with his speed could definitely be like that. But I think you're doing a disservice, and you got Carson Wentz to be your franchise quarterback. The Colts are always going to play to their quarterback strengths. So last year it was the shorter passes, the quicker throws with Phillip Rivers. I could see a lot of bootleg action where we do play action to Jonathan Taylor. Carson Wentz gets outside the pocket, and you could see a Michael Pittman or a Paris Campbell on a deep crosser to really open up the field. And I think, like I said, the Colts will always play to the quarterback's best strengths, and that's definitely one of Carson Wentz's best strengths, is throwing it deep.
Absolutely. We got Turner, 21, Hayward, 20. In that ideal world, how would you split up the defense and rotation? Should starters play 70% of the snaps? Well, I think if it were up to me, all the snaps would go to just 4 players. It would go to Tyquan Lewis, Ben Banogu, Kamoka Ture, and Kwity Paye. It wouldn't go to, I mean, Al-Qadim Muhammad, I would get in there if I needed to, but for the most part, it would go to the young guys, but it's not up to me, unfortunately. So I got to pick my battles here. I think all I'm going to ask is Kwity Paye plays around 60 to 70% snaps. I want to see Kwity Paye get going, but we're going to see a heavy rotation off the edge. It's going to be, I think we're going to have 6 guys active. Hopefully we don't get another Ben Banogu scratch this week. Part of me feels like we might, but if all 6 guys are active, we're going to see all 6 of them play snaps. I don't know how they're going to divvy that up, but they're going to split it up quite a bit. I doubt if all 6 guys are active, I don't think we'll see a guy like one guy over like 55, 60% of the snaps. I think it'll be quite a split. But yeah, if we're up to me, it'd only be the 4 young guys that would be getting the snaps.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I would really like to see Kwity Paye get 70 to 80% of the snaps because, and I think we've seen over these past few years where this rotation, it's kind of like a catch-22. When you're rotating defensive ends in and out, it keeps them fresh. But I think at some points it starts to stunt the development of the young guys because we don't see, I mean, for the most part, Kamoka Ture is out there maybe 20 snaps a game on a good day. Tyquan Lewis, the more snaps he got last year, even in a backup role, he started to come on. And that's what we really need to see, especially with Ture and Tyquan Lewis. They're in contract years, and we need to see if they're going to be able to be kept on this roster. Ben Banogu's in his 3rd year, and then when Dayo Odangbo can come back from his injury, how are they going to incorporate him into that rotation? So ideally, I'd love to see the young guys get as many reps as possible to show their development, show their growth. But yeah, I do agree that it's probably going to be split most of the time 50-50 all across the board.
Yep. A couple more things here. We got Deontay Adams saying, is Wentz the right fit? We could probably do a whole thing on that, but we hope so. We hope so, Deontay, and we appreciate you jumping on from Facebook. But yeah, we definitely hope so. This year we'll definitely see, right?
Right. And I do think that we will see an offense more similar to what we saw in 2018 with Andrew Luck, just because of their skill sets. And that was probably the best offense under Frank Reich. So if as long as Wentz can stay within the fabric of the offense and doesn't try to play too much hero ball, I think it'll be a great partnership.
Yep. And then last one, we got something from Matt here about Warren Sharp and PFF not coming out and saying they're wrong. Look, man, if you're going for clicks, you can't go out and say you're wrong. You don't apologize. You just ignore it until the bad press goes away, because bad press is the same as good press. It's just press, But yeah, I mean, if you guys aren't familiar with what Matt's asking here, go on either Warren Sharp or Pro Football Focus accounts. You'll see a play where they're mentioning something about Micah Parsons needing a map or something, or being lost. When it was a very basic. Essentially, what was happening was it was an outside zone run to the right for the offense. Parsons is backside filling into that A gap. When he sees it's not a run, he sees it's play action. He pulls out. He looks over into the flat to see if there's anyone coming that way. Doesn't see anyone in the flat, and then he gets back into his depth and gets in front of the crosser. And Brady completes the pass because Brady's not human. And the crosser beat the corner in man coverage. There's nothing Micah Parsons could have done. I mean, there's maybe 3 linebackers in the NFL who could turn around and get in front of that and make a play. So yeah, definitely check that out. See all the people clowning on them. Apparently the technique is called robot technique. A lot of people are parroting that now because they're seeing the football guys come in and say robot technique. I didn't know what that term was before today either. So let's not all act like we know what robot is, but if you know football, that's exactly what he was supposed to be doing there. So yeah. But one more question we got from Colts loyalist. What is your score prediction for Sunday? And I'll let you go first because people will like your answer.
People are going to like my answer. In my podcast, I went with the Colts because I think it's going to be a very close game. I really don't think either team is going to blow the other out. I think the spread right now is Seahawks -2.5. Yeah. But I think I'm going to go with the Colts because I think they're going to surprise people. And I just think how much pressure and how much focus they're putting on this game. I mean, Jim Irsay is texting Darius Leonard at 2 a.m. telling him how much he wants to win this game. game, and that's going to resonate with players, and I think they'll have success mainly with Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines. I don't think it's going to be one or the other going off for a huge game, but I think relying on them. Carson Wentz, I do think will start a little erratic, but once he gets hit for the first time, he'll settle in. I'm going to go Colts 24, Seahawks 21.
Yeah, so I'm just a little more pessimistic with it because, again, that Seahawks fire blitz, I think the first game for Carson Wentz coming off of the year he had it with pressure in his face, I think it's just a tough matchup. And then his defense, they're a bit shorthanded, no Rhodes, no Toure, against a top-tier quarterback, a top 3 or 4 quarterback in the league. I think it's just a tough matchup, and I think the Seahawks match up well with the Colts. So right now I'm going to go 27-23 Seahawks. I think that it really comes down to the Colts just having to convert more in the red zone will ultimately be the end thing. But yeah, kickers mattering this weekend. Yeah, see, 27-23, and the Colts miss an extra point, and that's where there we go.
Hey, I had an article actually come out today about a video that was done on Rodrigo Blankenship about kind of showing his hobbies. He loves Legos. He said he's put together between 80 and 100 Lego sets in his lifetime.
Gosh, what other kicker with less personality?
What other NFL kicker or what other NFL player can say that? And then he's also a sneakerhead. The kid's got between 80 and 90 pairs of sneakers, and he has a pair of socks for each one. It was kind of really cool to see. I know you're not the biggest fan of kickers, but hey, I'm all aboard the hot rod train.
Look, man, I always say it's kind of like, what's that religious thing, like hate the sin but love the sinner or something like that. Mine's hate the kicker position but love the kicker. Like, I like kickers. I think I respect anyone who makes the hustle or whatever, like hustles the league out of money for a useless position, but I like kickers. I don't like the position of kicker. And I hope Rodrigo never misses a kick ever again. But if he does miss a kick, you guys know where to go. I will be on it. But with that, guys, we were going to say, good luck to all Colts fans going to the game this week. Seymour Squid, I know he probably dipped out already, but Seymour Squid, you're going to meet up with Seymour Squid, Andrew. That's lot two in section 410. Yeah, I think he said Abbott Street or something. Yeah, Abbott Street. I'm in Virginia. I have no clue what any of those words mean, but is McAfee hitting the anvil this week too?
I'm not sure. If he is, it's going to get those 63,000 fans all riled up because there's not. Besides Peyton Manning and maybe Edgerrin James, I don't know if there's more beloved Colt than Pat McAfee. So if he is, it'll be great.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Well, hey, we appreciate you guys tuning in. We've had pretty consistent viewership here for over an hour. You guys have been great as always. But yeah, tune in every single Friday because every single Friday we'll be doing Fan Question Friday. I think a lot of the time, just me guessing right now, I think most of the time it's going to be Andrew jumping off me, but we'll see. We'll see if we get some of the other guys to jump on too. But yeah, I appreciate you guys tuning in, and hopefully we get a Colts victory here on Sunday against the Seahawks.